Right now, there's a silent battle happening in your mind that most people never even realize they're losing. It's not loud. It doesn't feel dramatic. It shows up as hesitation, overthinking, second guessing, and that quiet voice that tells you to wait, to delay, to doubt yourself just a little longer. And without noticing it, that voice becomes the reason you don't act, the reason you don't speak up, the reason you don't take the opportunity that could have changed everything. Here's the truth most people avoid. It's not the world holding you back. It's the thoughts you keep allowing to run unchecked in your mind. Every negative thought you repeat is not just a thought. It's a signal your brain starts to treat as reality. And once your mind accepts something as reality, your behavior begins to follow it without resistance. That's how people slowly drift away from their potential without ever realizing where things went wrong. But what if the problem isn't that you have negative thoughts? What if the real problem is that no one ever taught you how to respond to them? What if the difference between the life you have and the life you want is hidden in a single moment? The moment right after a negative thought appears. Because in that moment, you either reinforce it or you take control of it. And that one decision, repeated over time, quietly shapes your confidence, your mindset, your actions, and ultimately your entire future. If you've ever felt stuck, held back, or trapped in your own thinking, what you're about to hear will challenge the way you see your mind forever. Negative thoughts are often misunderstood. Most people assume that because a negative thought appears, it must mean something about who they are or what their future will be. But that's not how the mind actually works. A thought appearing is not a verdict. It's not a prophecy. It's not even a reflection of truth in many cases. It's simply a mental event, something generated by past experiences, fears, patterns, and environments you've been exposed to over time. The key realization is this: negative thoughts are not inherently powerful. They only become powerful when you treat them as important. The mind produces thousands of thoughts every single day, many of them random, repetitive, and automatic. You don't consciously choose most of them. They arise on their own. But what determines their impact is not their existence. It's your response to them. When a negative thought appears, such as, "I'm not capable," or "this is going to go wrong," most people make a subtle but critical mistake. They assume the thought deserves attention. They pause. They analyze it. They emotionally engage with it. And in doing so, they begin to build a relationship with it. The thought, once just a passing mental occurrence, now becomes something they revisit, reconsider, and reinforce. That's where the shift happens. Not at the moment of appearance, but at the moment of attention. Attention is the currency of the mind. Whatever you consistently pay attention to becomes more prominent, more believable, and more influential. So when you repeatedly give attention to negative thoughts, you are not just noticing them. You are strengthening them. You are training your mind to treat them as relevant, even if they are inaccurate or exaggerated. This is why two people can have the same negative thought, yet experience completely different outcomes. One person dismisses it as background noise and continues forward. The other internalizes it, dwells on it, and allows it to shape their decisions. The difference is not intelligence, ability, or even circumstances. The difference is awareness and control over attention. It's important to understand that the mind is designed to protect you. It scans for threats, anticipates risks, and tries to keep you safe by highlighting potential problems. But in modern life, that same mechanism can become overactive. It begins to interpret uncertainty as danger, challenges as threats, and growth as something to avoid. As a result, it produces thoughts that feel urgent, convincing, and sometimes even realistic, but are actually rooted in caution rather than truth. So when a negative thought arises, it doesn't mean something is wrong with you. It means your mind is doing what it has been conditioned to do. The real question is not why the thought appeared, but why you are choosing to give it authority. Because authority is not inherent in the thought itself. Authority is granted by you. The moment you treat a thought as meaningful, it begins to influence your emotions. And once your emotions are influenced, your behavior follows. That's how a simple, fleeting thought can quietly shape your confidence, your decisions, and ultimately your direction in life. But here's where control becomes possible. You can observe a thought without agreeing with it. You can notice a thought without engaging it. You can acknowledge its presence without assigning it meaning. This shift from identification to observation is where mental freedom begins. Instead of reacting automatically, you create a pause. In that pause, you recognize this is just a thought, not a command. It does not require belief. It does not require action. It does not require fear. It simply exists, and like all thoughts, it will pass if you do not feed it. When you stop feeding negative thoughts with attention, emotional energy, and repetition, they begin to lose intensity. Not because you fought them, but because you stopped sustaining them. And in that space, your mind becomes clearer, more focused, and more aligned with what actually matters. This is not about suppressing your inner world. Suppression often makes thoughts stronger. This is about changing your relationship with your thoughts entirely. Instead of being directed by them, you begin to observe them, evaluate them, and choose whether they deserve space in your thinking. Over time, this practice builds mental resilience. You stop being easily influenced by every passing idea. You stop overreacting to internal noise. And you develop the ability to stay grounded even when your mind is uncertain. That stability is what allows you to act with clarity, rather than hesitation. So the presence of negative thoughts is not the problem. The problem begins when they are treated as truth without examination. When you recognize them for what they are, temporary, automatic, and often unreliable, you regain control. And that control changes everything. Because once you understand that negative thoughts are allowed to exist, but not allowed to lead, you stop living reactively and start living intentionally. And in that moment, your mind is no longer your obstacle, it becomes your tool. The shift is simple, but powerful thoughts may appear, but they no longer decide who you become. You cannot control every thought that enters your mind. That's the reality most people resist. Yet it's the starting point of real mental discipline. Thoughts arise automatically, shaped by memory, emotion, environment, and habit. They don't ask permission before showing up. And because of that, many people feel powerless, as if the presence of a thought already means something significant. But the real power was never in controlling the first thought. The real power lies in what you do next. That space immediately after a thought appears is where your responsibility begins. Not before it, not during its formation, but right after you become aware of it. In that moment, you have a choice. You can repeat the thought, reinforce it, and allow it to deepen. Or you can question it, challenge it, and replace it with something more accurate and constructive. That second thought is not automatic. It's intentional, and that's why it matters. Most people unconsciously skip this step. A negative thought appears. I'm going to fail. I'm not good enough. This will go wrong. And instead of pausing, they accept it. They don't examine its validity. They don't ask whether it's helpful or even true. They react emotionally, and that emotional reaction strengthens the thought. Once strengthened, the thought begins to feel like reality, even if it's not grounded in evidence. But when you begin to understand that you are responsible for the second thought, everything shifts. Responsibility doesn't mean blame. It means awareness and control over your response. It means recognizing that while the first thought may be automatic, the second thought is where you reclaim agency. That is where you decide whether the thought will influence your emotions or whether it will be redirected. This is where many people underestimate their own power. They assume that because a thought feels convincing, it must be accurate. But thoughts are not always trustworthy simply because they feel strong. Fear-based thoughts often carry urgency. Doubt-based thoughts often carry repetition. But neither urgency nor repetition is proof of truth. They are just signals that require evaluation, not automatic belief. So instead of asking, "Why am I thinking this?" the more effective question becomes, "Do I need to believe this?"